Hi everyone, welcome to our Camp Access event, living as a disabled artist during the COVID-19 crisis with artist and disability advocate Oaklee Thiele. I want to thank her for taking her time to do this talk for us. And now I'm going to turn over the talk to Oaklee and give you the floor.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah. Okay, so I put together a little bit of slideshow. I do have some images in there and I will be reading the image descriptions. But if I forget, just remind me please, because I don't want to mess that up. So living as a disabled artist, I pretty much have three things that are constantly on my mind, and that would be my health, my art, and then my disabled community. And since the start of this COVID-19 pandemic, all of those have really been turned upside down. I don't know how much Mary has really told you guys about myself and about my health. But I was diagnosed with severe PTSD a few years ago. I do use a service dog now. Her name is Coco. But my PTSD has really kind of taken over my life. And it's been, really difficult to handle things. Of course, during this pandemic, that's when my health decided to flare up again and I started to have more chronic health issues. That's always how it goes, isn't it? It's like the worst possible timing. But I started to experience just really, really bad chronic fatigue. And my doctors did a lot of testing, and we were able to determine that it wasn't a physical thing. We really thought it was kind of just the PTSD manifesting in a physical way. So because of this chronic fatigue that I've been experiencing recently, I haven't been able to walk up the stairs, I haven't been able to drive, and there's times where I can't even hold a pencil. And so my time recently, it's really been split between doctor's appointments, testing, and then continuing my career as an artist, as a disabled artist, because I want to make that distinction, because at this point, my disability is really impacting my physical ability to create work. So right here on this slide, the image that I currently have, it's a charcoal drawing of what I want to say is a flow chart. The top circle says things I think about as a disabled artist, and it's followed by three smaller circles that say my health/disability, my art, and my disabled community. So because of the extreme chronic fatigue that I've been having, I've had to figure out new ways to create art, because the ways that I used to do it, I can't physically handle that anymore. And so I've been doing what I call adaptive art making. And I've been building these custom tools that sort of allow me to continue to produce these large scale portraits, despite the chronic fatigue and the pain that I might be feeling that day. And so I built this is one of the most recent ones that I've built. And it's a wooden rod that I have taped a paintbrush and a charcoal stick to. And that sort of allows me to sit and stay stationary and not use as much energy as what I normally would have. And I've kind of, it's helped me sort of realize that there's no one real way to create a single portrait. Like there's so many ways to create art, The tools have been great. They've been amazing. The only thing is that my service dog has mistaken them a few times for a toy. So she's run off a few times with those. But other than that, highly recommend doing some adaptive art making. This is the most recent one that I made using those tools. And it's a few feet long, like it's pretty big. This is a charcoal drawing of an abstracted nude female kneeling down as she wears a surgical mask. And I have 6 rocks sort of on top of the piece that kind of helped keep it from blowing away because I was outdoors. Um, so another thing that I want to talk about in regards to sort of health and art is using art as a means to cope with my health issues. So I've started doing these smaller weavings as well. And this is something that I can do on the days where I'm bedbound, when I can't get out of bed, whether that's for, usually it's for the chronic fatigue, because that's my main issue right now. But the weaving process, it's really repetitive and really intricate, and it sort of allowed me to meditate on whatever, concept that this piece holds. And so this specific weaving, I finished it quite recently. It's a weaving that I made in response to my experiences as a disabled individual during the COVID-19 pandemic. I've witnessed, the maltreatment of our disabled community throughout this entire crisis. And I've felt this need to confidently and bluntly declare, we are disabled, but we are equal. Sorry, there's my service dogs down there. Okay. So this is the image description for this. This is a weaving that hangs on a solid white wall. And I used rainbow colored yarn to write the words, "I'm disabled and equal." And then the words are surrounded by black yarn behind it. That's really all I have in regards to my health. I did want to talk a bit about working as an artist during the COVID-19 pandemic, because that has been a complete disaster. That has been a mess. My income, it's a patchwork of various revenue streams, right? So I get money from art exhibitions, art commissions, teaching jobs, and public speaking. And within less than a week, COVID kind of managed to take away my entire income. So all the gigs I had booked up for the next 2 months to the foreseeable future, they've been canceled or postponed, and I've been kind of scrambling to find work. That's terrifying, because as a freelance artist, you do expect those unpredictable moments, but it's definitely not a stable career. But then you're going to add a pandemic into the mix, and that's something that I or any other creative was really prepared to handle. A lot of resources have surfaced for artists to help them financially and mentally just sort of get through this pandemic. I'm sure we've all received those emails about, the museums that have started doing programming online, and you can tour the museum online. And that's something that I find really interesting, because this is something that can hopefully lead to a more accessible art world at the end of all of this. That's something that's an entirely different talk, so I won't go too far into it. But these new things that are coming up within the art world, these new opportunities that we're starting to develop because we're all forced to stay home, is something that can be continued on later, to allow more disabled people and homebound people experience the art world. So one of the programs that I am currently participating in is called a Socially Distant Artist Residency. This was created by artist Patricia Kalidonis. And this is one of the pieces that I made in her program. It is an image of myself wearing a surgical mask, and I'm sitting on an empty store shelf, kind of surrounded by a few pieces of toilet paper rolls. And I've got my service dog. She's a German Shepherd, and she's just kind of laying down at my feet. So that was a digital photograph that I created for the artist residency. This is another one. This is an image of a girl wearing a tank top and orange shorts, and I'm resting on a bright red blanket in a green yard. And beside me is a identical red blanket where my service dog is resting as well. So creating, being a part of this artist residency, it's been a really surreal experience, because this has been perhaps the most accessible artist residency that I have ever been a part of. Artist residencies, they're meant to be a time for reflection, a space to, build a whole new body of work. And they're incredible, they're great. But my main issue with them is a lot of them, um, they're usually located in these, you know, wilderness settings. It's off in the middle of nowhere, and it's just not accessible for someone with disabilities. The So this program that Patricia has created, is actually entirely online. We have scheduled critiques, we have discussions, we write blog posts, we share our finished images, and yeah, if this is something that we can continue after the pandemic, it's something that it makes artist residencies accessible for disabled people. Um, and I just want to show you, this is one more, this is my last piece that I have created for the residency. It's a charcoal drawing of a girl and her dog standing in front of a playground. She's wearing a mask and holds a drink with a straw. The park is covered in caution tape, as a flock of birds fly in the sky. I actually made this out of charcoal and water. So, sorry. As I was saying, I watched, all of these new opportunities arise. And I did join this artist residency, which seemed like a really great step for me. There was just this one really big problem, and it was the fact that the stress and the unpredictable new reality brought on by COVID had caused this major, major artist block for me. So a few months ago, when I had joined this residency, I was really having a lot of difficulties creating work. And I eventually learned that the major obstacle that I was facing was the fact that I was trying to keep my work separate. I didn't want to, discuss COVID within my work. I felt that COVID was too much of a global political, thing going on. And a lot of my work, it discusses my relationship with my service dog. It sometimes discusses my disability, but it never discussed, world events. It's just not something that I, as an artist, felt, that needed to be talked about. And I quickly realized that, COVID has everything to do with disability. It has everything to do with being a disabled person. And I, as a disabled artist, needed to talk about this pandemic. You see, I believe that the role of an artist is to bring together community, to help people see things in a different way, and to make a revolution irresistible. And that's going to bring me on to my last topic. I want, how to address my disabled community during the COVID-19 crisis. So discrimination that we have experienced during this pandemic, as a disabled community, it's been very upsetting, very horrific, jaw-dropping even. I've witnessed our government, our healthcare providers, just the whole world completely abandon our disabled community yet again. And I was fed up. I was at the point where I just couldn't keep quiet about it anymore. So I ended up partnering with DisArt. They are a organization that serves disabled artists across the world. And we were really tired of seeing the disabled community just kind of tossed aside, and we were kind of being devalued within the news stories as well. And so we had this mutual want, this mutual need, to create documentation of our disabled community's experience with COVID-19. And we wanted to ensure that disabled voices were heard and were represented, and that the stories were told by disabled people. So I started this project, this collaboration, and I wrote an open letter to my disabled community titled My Dearest Friends. And in this piece, I'll read it here. It says, "My dearest friends, we mustn't let this be forgotten. The time the world gained perspective on a small portion of our struggles. We must make sure that this moment goes down in history so that we can build a better world, a more accessible world, a world for everyone, a world for us." Um, so yeah, I mean, I wrote this open letter, and I sort of vowed to my disabled community that I would end up building a more accessible world at the end of all of this. And I truly, wholly believe that. Like, if that's the only thing that I do with the rest of my life, I'd be very happy and very proud. And so DisArt and I sort of use this open letter as the foundation for our art collaboration. And it has since become known as the My Dearest Friends Project. This is definitely the largest project that I've ever worked on. Its scale and reach has just it's been crazy. But so we ended up posting this open letter online, and we asked for other disabled individuals to send us their own letters in response. Um, and it's just been really surreal hearing. We've heard from people all across the world, so many different countries. And I've, been able to hear from people who have recovered from COVID, from the nurses who are battling on it on the front lines. And I've also heard from my disabled peers who are currently losing access to essentials due to this pandemic. And so it's been interesting getting to talk to everyone about their life and their health and their fears. I did want to read to you guys a few of the submissions that I have currently received already. This one is from Jason, and he is a fashion model with a spinal cord injury. He lives in Australia. He wrote, "My dearest friends, I'm not sorry that I am disabled, and I don't want anyone else to feel sorry for me either. If there's anything you should be sorry about, it's the systematic discrimination of people with disabilities. And if you're truly sorry about that, you'll start taking action to dismantle ableism. I don't need your pity. I need you to learn, embrace, and become more inclusive of me and all other people with disabilities." The image description for this slide, it's a charcoal drawing of a man in a wheelchair. He has his right arm on one of the wheels and the other hand resting on his knee. Another submission, this one is from our good friend Mary. Mary wrote, "My dearest friends, what do you see when you see me? Someone who is weak, vulnerable. I am one of many with a powerful voice. Can you hear us screaming that we deserve equality? Will you listen to those screams, or will you let them continue to go unheard?" And this image that accompanies her drawing, it's a charcoal drawing of a girl wearing striped pants and a jacket as she stands in a powerful pose next to her portable oxygen tank. So with each submission that I receive, that DisArt and I receive, I actually draw a custom illustration and then post it on an archival Instagram, and we post it on the website. So it goes on to multiple different places, but it's like responding to their writing with an image. It's kind of my way of, as an artist, just to, it's my way of an art. Oh no, words. It's my way to respond to them. It's my way of saying, I see you, I hear you, and here's a place for you to be heard by even more people. So the My Dearest Friends projects, it's really been, it's been a community effort. It's only been possible through the written submissions that our disabled community sends us. And it's been both really reassuring and heartbreaking to know that so many within the disabled community are experiencing the same exact struggles with this pandemic that I am. These are just a few images of my studio. You can see this project has really consumed the space entirely. I've made over 200 illustrations for this project so far. It started about 2 months ago, and our plan is to continue this project, to continue accepting submissions all throughout the entire pandemic. And this is the last image. This one shows me crouching down on the concrete floor of my studio. There's my service dog, Coco. She's sitting right next to me. And there's there's a wooden ladder, there's a studio light, and there's several large papers hanging behind me. This was actually taken the first day that I started the My Dearest Friends project. And then these images, those were taken, a few weeks after that. Um, so yeah, I guess, I mean, that's how it's really been, life as a disabled artist during the COVID-19 pandemic. I can definitely say that this is not how I expected to be spending, 2020. But I think as a disabled community, we've been given this really rare opportunity. This global crisis has opened society's eyes on the struggles of working from home, on the anxiety that comes with lack of healthcare, and on the uncertainty that we as disabled people live with daily. And so this conversation that has been started, it's kind of up to us to make sure that it continues well after the pandemic. Now is really the time for us to start demanding accessible workforce, an accessible school system, and an accessible world.